The topics that we're working on, unless you call in, are equations, solving equations. So some of the equations have fractions in it because in the last series that we did this time last year, a lot of fractions. So I'm trying to integrate and mesh these subjects and solving equations with fractions in it. Let's take a look at our first problem. All right, so we're going to work on this problem right there. So what we have is we've got 1/4 x plus 2/3 is equal to 3/4. All right, so we're going to figure out the value of x that would make this statement true. That's what we're doing, solving for x. So what your teacher might say is use a reverse order of operations. And what they mean by that, reverse order of operations, is normally with the order of operations, you're doing parentheses first, you're doing your exponents, then you're doing your multiplication, division, and then your last step is addition, subtraction. What some teachers are doing is they're saying solve equations using the reverse order of operations. So what that means is if the first things we're going to do is add and subtract. So let's keep that in mind as we look at this problem. All right, so because we're adding here, let's subtract. Subtract 2/3, subtract 2/3. And what we end up with is 3/4 minus 2/3. So let's evaluate that. We've got 3/4 minus 2/3. We need a common denominator, which is 12. And we're multiplying this 3 by 4. And now we're going to multiply this 2 by 4 to get 8. There's no difference between 8/12 and 2/3. Let's multiply this by 3. Multiply this numerator by 3. And we get 9. There's no difference between 9/12 and 3/4. Now let's subtract. And we get 1/12. I think we have a caller. We have 1/4 x is equal to the 1/12. Is equal to 1/12. So let's solve this. Let's multiply both sides by 4. Multiply both sides by 4. The inverse of division is multiplication. And now what you end up with is 1/12 times 4. You can cross cancel there. And you end up with 1/3. Final answer. Let's take a look at the problem we began with. We got the answer 1/3. I like to encourage my students to have a mastery level understanding. And what that means is we're going to try to solve the same problem in more than one way. Let's take a look at the same problem. Let's try to solve it in a different way. All right, so we've got 1/4 x. All right, 1/4 x plus 2/3 is equal to 3/4. We solved this problem earlier, and we got the answer 1/3. Let's try to solve it in a different way by multiplying the entire equation by the least common denominator, least common multiple. All right, so in this case, to find the least common denominator, you're going to ask yourself, is 4 the least common denominator? It's the biggest number. And then you ask yourself, can 3 go into 4? It can't. So what you're going to do is you're going to increment that largest denominator by 4 in this case. So you're going to go count from 4 to 8. Ask yourself, can 3 go into 8? It turns out that it can't. So now you increment the 4 one more time. You go from 4 to 8 to now 12. You're counting by 4s. And 3 can go into 12. So you're going to multiply the entire equation by 12 and observe what you come up with. So 1/4 times 12, you get 3. All right? You get 3x. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to finish this problem as soon as we address this call. Thank you for calling, caller. How can we help you?
Well, I recorded to your program, and for problem 1/4 times x plus 3 or 2/3 equals 3/4.
Yes.
I was wondering if you are multiplying by 4 because it's 1/4, and that's a division sign. So is it why you're multiplying by 4 and not dividing?
Very good, young lady. Yes.
Okay.
This is 1/4. So what you can do, there's a couple ways you can go about doing this problem. You can multiply by the reciprocal of 1/4. Okay, you can do that. Or it was actually a shortcut. what I did was I had 1/4 x
Right.
is equal to 1/12. What you could do is you could divide both sides by 1/4 if you'd like.
Mhm.
And then what you'd end up with is x is equal to 1/12 divided by 1/12 divided by 1/4. And the way
Okay.
you divide fractions, do you know how to divide fractions?
Yes, you multiply it by the reciprocal.
Yeah, so you end up with 1/12 times the reciprocal of 1/4, which is 4, and you end up doing the same thing that I did here.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Call again, okay?
Okay.
All right, so now what
right.
we were doing is we were finishing the same problem that we just walked through where we got the answer 1/3. We were solving it in a different way. All right, so we multiplied 1/12 times 1/4 x, we got 3x. We multiplied 12 times 2/3, let's do that up here. Multiply 2/3 times 12. The 3 cancels with the 12, we get 4, and we end up with 8. 12 times 1/4 x is 3x. 12 times 2/3 is 8. And now we end up with 3/4 times 12. We cross cancel the 4 and the 12. The 4 is divisible. 4 goes into 12 3 times, and you end up with 3 times 3, which is 9. What multiplying by that least common denominator did was get rid of all the fractions. So if you don't like fractions, this might be an approach that you might want to consider. Just take the original equation and multiply it by the least common denominator. Let's finish the problem. All right, so now we're going to use, as some teachers say, we're going to use inverse order of operations. So we have addition here. Let's now subtract. We subtract 8 on both sides, and we end up with 3x is equal to 9 minus 8, which is 1. You end up dividing by 3 on both sides, and you end up with 1/3. You end up with 1/3. And that's the same thing that we got. That's the same thing that we got when we did that problem in a different way. Mastery level understanding. We want to encourage our students to not just understand how to do a problem, but we also want to encourage our students to know how to do the same problem in more than one way. That encourages what I'm calling a mastery level understanding. If your child struggles with math, I can almost guarantee that they are lacking in some fundamental areas. They might struggle with their timetables. The timetables are the fundamentals of some of the elementary math that our students are being asked to understand. So get some flashcards, purchase some flashcards, and drill your students on their timetables. They should know their timetables as quickly as they can share with you their name. If their name is John, John, what's your name? They'll tell you their name. And then you say to that same child, what's 6 times 3? They ought to know it. And we ought to drill those timetables with our students. And I believe that will assist our children in obtaining this mastery level understanding of math and making it so they're much more successful.